On this episode, we sit down with Matt Steen and talk about leading a thriving church staff. Well, hey, welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab, where we get to have conversations that help empower healthy churches. We're glad to have another one of those today, and we're glad that you are joining us for it. Now, we got to sit down with Matt Steen, who actually was the first guest who joined us on this show way back when. So it was great to have him on again and talk about what does it look like to lead a healthy church staff. You know, a lot's changed in the last few years, and so it was great to catch up with Matt and follow up on some things, but talk about what's new, what's ahead, what is he seeing when it comes to leading healthy church staffs. And so we jumped into this conversation. We got to sit down in person at a conference recently together, and it was really, really helpful. We think you're going to learn a lot from it. Now, if you aren't aware, Matt has served the local church for over 2 decades as a youth pastor, church planter, and executive pastor. Originally from Baltimore, Matt currently lives in the Orlando, Florida area with his wife, Teresa, and he has a bachelor's in youth ministry from Nyack College and an MDiv and MBA from Baylor University. Certified as an urban church planter coach by Redeemer City to City, and as a Strat-Op facilitator by the Patterson Center, Matt has made a career of helping churches thrive through intentionality, clarity, and creating healthy cultures. He's convinced that a healthy church is led by a healthy team with great chemistry, and he loves partnering with churches across the country to do great things for the kingdom. This was such a great conversation. We're excited to share it today. And so without further ado, here's our conversation with Matt Steen. Matt, thanks for coming on another episode of the Church Leadership Lab. We're glad to have you here.
I'm just touched that you had me back, man.
It is another episode.
And surprised.
It's another episode. However, longtime listeners, which would include my mom, Casey's mom, maybe
us,
one or two
sometimes.
other people. Yes. Would know that you were the first interview that we had. We did one episode that was just like talking about what's the podcast going to be. First interview.
Oh boy.
It was
you.
you.
You know, I'm getting a little emotional.
I know.
I'm getting a little weepy.
If you want to update your LinkedIn bio too with that info, you can do that.
Recurring podcast.
And so,
yes.
yeah, that was virtual. This is in person now. It's been 75 episodes. I don't know how many weeks, but
wow.
I guess
That's a
75
trendsetter.
weeks because we do one episode a week, I think.
It's good math right
trendsetter,
there.
yes.
Yeah.
So I know last time, because we always ask everyone, what's something that doesn't make the public bio or your friends and family know, and you shared about your dog. But you just shared a really interesting fact before we hit record that the people need to know.
Yes.
So share that with us, please.
Yeah, so my dog Nellie, she is a retired greyhound. She is the 3rd fastest dog in the country right now.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I have a lot of questions, a lot of which we probably don't have time for. But is there do you have to go to a place to get an official
Right.
time?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So there's a thing called Fast Cat. Okay, and then we're going to get really
Fast
geeky right
Cat?
now. Fast Cat. Don't ask me why it's called that. It just is. It's the American Kennel Club does this, and it's like a 100-yard dash for dogs.
Okay.
And it's so cool. Like when you see a dog do the thing that the dog was created to do.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And there's
Yeah.
almost a spiritual component, and that's going to get people canceling me. But you know, she will do a 100-yard dash in 5.5 seconds flat.
What?
Wow, man,
Yes.
that's so wild.
So she's the 3rd fastest dog in the
That's
country and has a
wild.
fan club. It's amazing.
I'm sorry, she's a fan club?
She has a fan club.
How do I join?
Do you have an Instagram?
said fan
I am trying my hardest not to because it's
Why?
because I'm fighting being a soccer dad.
Don't fight it, man.
No, I go to this and I've got people that come up and are like, "So is your dog fast?" She's okay. And then they're like, "No, my corgi is so fast. It's gonna be great." And I'm like, "Yeah, my dog's gonna do it in half the time."
Yeah, it's sort of like if you got it, man, you got to show the world. You got to share it with the
Nellie
world.
needs to be known.
Yeah, well, yeah. So people at our church actually made her a logo.
Oh, that's awesome.
And some swag.
I love it.
And I'm
She's got
I'm
swag.
really trying not to
love
be
it.
that guy.
Be it.
Be that guy.
It's
Amen.
really tough. It's really tough.
I'm behind you, heart and soul, if
Yeah.
you want to be that guy.
I'll sign the petition.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
I love it.
We need Nellie.
Yeah,
that's
We
it.
need Nellie.
That's
More
fantastic.
Nelly.
Well, I know the first conversation we had was 75 weeks ago about it's been some time, and even we talked then, we were still kind of feeling the effects of 2020 and everything, and just all of that. But what I'd love to know is since that time, and even just where you're at right now, what are you what's sort of going on in the world of church staffing? What are you encouraged by? What are some still challenges you see?
Wow, that's a lot. So what am I encouraged by? I think we're coming out of, we still got long tail effects from COVID, right? We're still seeing, we saw some of that this week with a moral fail that kind of went down. And so we're still seeing, some of that stuff.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think a lot of our pastors are a lot healthier than they were coming out. And that's encouraging, right? It's encouraging. People are kind of doubling down and saying, yeah, I'm in. Yeah. I'm in. I'm going to go. So that's encouraging. The piece that keeps me up at night, and I don't know if we talked about this last time or not, is I think we've got a coming succession issue.
Yeah.
Hardest search I do is a youth pastor search, right?
Interesting.
Traditionally, that's where...
There goes my second question.
Oh, sorry. Man, this is...
Just kidding.
This is why it took 75 weeks to get me back.
And it'll be 75 more.
Yeah.
So the hardest search I do is a youth pastor search, right? Traditionally, that's where we find our next generation of senior pastors.
Yeah.
But we are just not really cultivating our bench depth.
Yeah.
And so the guys that aren't youth pastors now, 5 years from now, aren't going to be the next generation of senior pastors. And the average age of a senior pastor right now is about 60.
Yeah.
Depending on where you're getting your stats from. So we've got a wave of succession that's going to come, and we just haven't really done. I had lunch with a bunch of pastors. This was about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this because this really is the thing that keeps me up at night. And I was watching as one of the guys at lunch, he's kind of chewing with his mouth open, processing, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And he just kind of said the quiet part out loud. And he said, it's probably been 15 years since I encouraged somebody to go into ministry.
Wow.
And every other face around the table, it starts to click. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Me too. And they wouldn't admit it.
Yeah.
But you could see that they were thinking that, and we've just kind of stopped calling out the called.
Which that's such like a subtle thing, but such a big signal.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally. We've done this really good job of kind of saying, hey, go be a minister wherever you are.
Yeah.
If you're a nurse, be a minister there. If you're a tax collector, accountant, whatever.
Repent.
Repent, and then go be a minister there, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing that, but we forgot that hey, local church ministry, vocational ministry is a valid answer too.
Yeah.
And we've just kind of let that slide.
Interesting.
Let me ask you then, so youth pastor being the toughest position to hire for, I'm sure percentage-wise, there's somebody probably listening to this who's like, yes and amen, because I've been trying for however many, whatever. What are some things then, like how do you make that an attractive job? How do you make that especially for whether it's Gen Z, even Gen Alpha coming out, like whatever, how do you, because something needs to change, like how do you make that to where that's something somebody would step into, in your opinion?
So I think it starts with calling out the called. Find somebody. I tell a lot of our churches, be thinking about a youth pastor search, and this is the worst sales pitch ever, but think about it as a 12-month ordeal. Yeah. Right?
Okay.
So make sure that you've got a contingency plan in place, right? Or if you have somebody that's got character, if you have somebody that seems to be exhibiting a call to ministry, why don't you, hire them at the low end of your salary range, take the money you save, invest it in training them up. Yeah. Go have coffee with them. Say, hey, I see, I see in you, right? I see the potential for you to do this. Have you ever thought about this? Have those conversations early. Have those conversations and kind of be talking about this as a valid option. Yeah. Now, there's ways to make the job look more attractive, right? Yeah. But the very foundation of it, if you can start with calling people out and encouraging them, vocational ministry is a valid option. I think you'd be great at this. That's a great start. Yeah. Right.
So, almost like building. Sounds like what you're talking about is investing more in building relationships rather than how do I recruit? How do I make this job more attractive? Am I actually investing in the people that are already in my ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely.
Say, have you ever thought about this?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
The capital C church needs that.
Right.
Yeah. Right? Because even if they come and they get built up and they last 3-5 years in your church and then they go somewhere else, that's a net win for the kingdom. Yeah. Right? And we tell churches, if you're doing a search, we're the last resort. start with people you know in your congregation.
Yeah.
Who's a good fit? They get your culture, they understand, their character, all that stuff. It's a lower risk, and then start to reach out to people who know your church, who knows us, who is for us, who's in our network that loves us, wants to see us succeed, gets our culture. And then, after you kind of exhaust that, that's when you go and call us.
What you just said is really significant. Like, you are a staffing agency, and you just said, we should be your last resort.
Oh, dear.
No, I mean, like, that's interesting.
Well, my wife's an accountant. She's not going to like that.
Again, not a great sales pitch, but that's really, really meaningful. If we as ministry leaders aren't investing in the people that we already have, and then, hey, I can't find anybody. Can you help me? Rather than, can you post this job for me?
Absolutely.
Then you haven't developed relationships. Like,
absolutely,
it's an interesting tension there.
Use your network. Use the people that know you, that are rooting for you, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're good. But, I'm a goofy guy in Orlando, right? I don't know,
with a very fast dog.
With a very fast dog. But I still, I'm never going to know your church as well as you do.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so then, well, if you're in ministry, then church operations can be a huge challenge. There's a lot to do, little time to do it, and whether it's just you or you have a team, my guess is you have a full plate. So how do you do things like communication and engagement, stewarding your finances, managing your digital presence, fostering community, and so much more in a way that builds a healthy church? Well, answering that question was the goal of creating the Guide to Healthy Church Operations. We wanted to take our 40-plus years of experience serving the church, combined with wisdom from various experts, to provide a blueprint for how you can navigate the ever-changing world of church operations. In this guide, you'll find things like how to improve member engagement and participation, building into staff and volunteers, making better decisions with clear metrics, the essentials of financial stewardship for churches, and so much more. And of course, we wanted to give this to you for free. So there's a link in the show notes to download the Guide to Healthy Church Operations. And we would love for you to grab a copy and use it to help grow a healthy church. What would you say to this situation? We have somebody internal, right? Gets our culture, part of the church, the relationship, but they're going to need a little bit of work, right? They're not there yet, versus external hire, maybe checks more boxes, but we just met him in this interview process. Like what, and I get people may not be in that situation where they have both options, but what have you seen that goes better in the long run?
I'm a consultant. It depends.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
So it depends on what the church needs.
Yeah.
Some churches, you just don't have the time required to mentor and develop and pour into somebody.
Yeah.
You don't have the ability to make sure that they're getting, educated in the ways, that they're honing their craft, that kind of thing. Or you need significant culture change.
Yeah.
In those cases, you probably need to bring in somebody that's got the skill set from the outside, come in, speak into this, help us shift culture. Yeah. Right? If you've got the patience, if you have the time, and they have character, and they have a clear call to ministry, and you're able to support and develop and pour into, it's always fun to watch that happen, from internal.
Well, I actually think that's really helpful because, and it does depend. There's not a black and white answer. I knew that even as I asked the question. However, I think to give... I think it's helpful for people to hear you talk about that, because then you can decide what season are you in, right? Like
that's it.
Like, what do you have capacity for? What do you want to see with your church, with the culture, all that stuff?
Maybe I'm pausing to say, what do we need? I know what I think I need.
Yeah.
What do I have to give?
Yeah.
Do I need culture change? Do I think we need culture change? But am I blinded to that? Where, I mean, that's well, I might think my culture is great.
Yeah, and I think that's the, you mentioned we're the last resort, but I think that's some of probably the value you bring is like people are just like, we have a need, we have a hole. What do I do? Plug the hole, and we're good.
And that's a lot of times that's the mindset, right? It's sometimes the best thing we can do when somebody leaves is just kind of stop and breathe for a little bit, right? A lot of times it's like, well, we just lost a youth pastor, we need another youth pastor. Maybe you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
How dare you?
Yeah.
No, I think that's important to call it out, because there's also, let's be like, just like the church has changed in ministry methods over the years, right? Think about 50 years ago, 60, 70, whatever. Like, that is happening too. Yeah. So maybe there's a different way to approach that.
Sure.
Totally. Totally. And there's something to be said about, just stopping, gaining perspective on where you are. You know, a lot of the, like, when we're doing succession work, because that's real. Yeah. A lot of the conversation that we have with churches is, hey, let's just kind of take a deep breath. God's not surprised by this. Yeah. Last I checked, he's still on the throne. Yeah. Yeah. But let's kind of get a sense of, where are we right now?
Right.
What, based on where we are now, where do we think God's taking us next?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we're going to do that, then what do we really need? What does our next senior pastor look like? What does our staffing structure look like? Do we need to rehire this role? Yeah. Or do we need to do something a little bit different, Yeah. And so taking a little bit of time on that is not a bad thing to really kind of gain that perspective.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to tell the future.
Oh boy, good.
But try.
Yeah.
But speaking of some of those potential changes around what a church staff looks like, what the priority is, are you seeing any signals, any signs of like, this may be something that's sort of shifting in the ministry method and then the staff required to do it? Yeah.
So there's a lot. I mean, we're in flux church-wise right now, right?
Yeah.
We're still, long tail of COVID is still playing out. We are starting to realize, that our bench depth isn't as deep as it needs to be.
Yeah.
A lot of our churches are shrinking, budgets are going with it, right? And so you've got some of that going on. I don't know if that continues, but part of what I've been encouraging churches to think about is, and this is small, mid-sized church, right? Mega church is going to mega church. They're going to do their thing, and they'll have
mega church going to mega church.
They're going to have their specialists.
That's the quote of the podcast.
There you go.
Just for the record.
There you go. So they can do their thing, but a lot of our smaller churches, maybe we need to go back to the old school associate pastor.
Yeah.
And give them a portfolio of services, right? And maybe our staff count is a little bit smaller, but we're paying them better.
Yeah.
We're giving them, they're getting health care and retirement, that kind of thing. A little bit more developed skill set, right? And we're giving them a portfolio of services, but we're asking them to bring that old school pastoral skill set.
Yeah.
That may have gotten thrown by the wayside in the kind of the paradigm shift towards leadership, right?
Yes.
Leadership's important.
Sure.
But the pastoral skill set is so critical right now.
Yeah.
We get somebody who's a little bit more agile, and then somebody who can go and really develop leaders. Call people out, call out the call. Yeah. And they may be coming in and just being, volunteering with youth, but are learning how to pastor.
Yeah.
Right? And somebody that can develop that. Smaller head count, maybe your personnel budget goes down a little bit, but you're able to pay, a more attractive package.
Yeah.
It's going to draw people in, and I think that gets more engagement from your crowd in the long run.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is actually interesting about that, one, I would say, oftentimes my experience with my peers in ministry, and maybe myself at times, it was not so much, man, the work is so hard and so demanding and this and that. Yes, there are seasons like that. It's a unique role, so there's unique tension, stress, right, that are kind of different. But it's like when you, and I'm just going to have a real honest moment for a moment, okay? When you compare that to then what you're getting paid, that's where the discrepancy comes, and you're like, not that you're in it for the money, not that, but when it's like, I have to deal with all that stress, and then we also have to figure out, I don't know if we can buy Christmas presents this year. Right. I don't know if we can buy groceries this month. Like,
totally.
So that idea of like, let's increase what we're paying somebody and expect them to have a little bit more on the plate or whatever, I think that to me is like, man, I know people who are like, great, I can do that. I have the capacity,
Part of why I think we're seeing the youth pastor shortage that we are is, right around the time when people were kind of frying over COVID and feeling exactly what you just described, Amazon started advertising that they're paying living wage, right?
Yeah.
Somebody can go there, get $45,000 a year, health insurance day one, tuition reimbursement. Old Jeff Bezos doesn't call you at 9 p.m. on Sunday, upset at what you said at youth group,
Right.
And a lot of guys are just like, I can volunteer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can scratch that ministry edge volunteering, and I'm actually going to be able to afford to pay my bills. And so that's part of what we see. I mean, that's part of why we started chemistry. I don't mean this as a sales pitch, but one of the 3 reasons we started this was we wanted to create an alternative income stream for pastors to be able to cover the cost of Christmas.
Yeah.
To vacation, to be a little bit more honest when they're talking with their board.
Yeah.
And so the guys that do interviews for us, it's not big money.
Yeah.
But we're helping them be able to be more sustainable in ministry that way and not have to go drive Uber.
Yeah.
Because, pastors, for the most part, we don't get in this for the money.
No. Yeah.
And there's a lot of scraping things together and experiencing. I mean, just what you lived.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. I think too, there's probably an opportunity as technology increases, as even just like agencies and people starting different business ideas, like the ability, I think of a small church that probably needs an office manager, admin, and a couple pastors, not that I'm looking to put anyone else out of work, but what does that look like to say, hey, we can actually offload a lot of this work to somebody else and the cost is less, or even we don't need to pay for design now because we have this AI tool that's going to create it for us. I think some of that stuff too are ways then for churches to step into a different way of looking at, hey, who are we paying who's actually leading, shepherding, pastoring us?
Totally. There's so many. Yeah, there's so much of that out there. We don't need a on-staff graphic designer.
No.
You can outsource some of that stuff. We don't need a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
You can outsource that. There's a lot of that stuff you can do. Then people do great work.
Right.
And then kind of...
Which we love you, graphic designers and bookkeepers.
Yeah.
We're not saying that...
We would love to pay you as a one-off.
As contractors.
Yeah, here's a project. Yes, exactly. We don't need a full-time...
Yeah, we can recommend some agencies you can go work for.
Do you guys do a lot of that? I mean, do you do consulting of hey, you need to hire this position. Your budget is not much. So we're going to pause and look at all the other human capital waste. I'm going to
Totally. We'll come in. We'll help churches kind of reevaluate their compensation structure. We'll help them figure out, are you really, you kind of come in as the angel of death sometimes, and it's like, hey, do you really need that role?
Yeah.
And then there's times when it's just like, hey, guys, yes, you've got a need, but is this really the best way to spend your money?
Yeah.
Or can we help you kind of rethink some of this stuff and maybe not make that higher?
Yeah.
Which again, my wife, the accountant, Teresa, I love you, but that makes her nervous.
Sure.
Because we still have a mortgage to pay.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I know for you, you've always been about the church and about helping the church and serving the church. And so, I think that there's a lot of interesting ways that's continuing to happen.
Oh, totally.
And utilizing these tools that some are new and some are really becoming pretty interesting.
Oh yeah. It's an amazing time we live in, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have so many new things that we can just kind of pull from and help it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I know that we've talked a lot about hiring, finding new staff, and just sort of thinking through all that. But eventually the time comes where it's, hey, we did hire somebody, and now we need to take them from not hired, not part of the team, to onboarded, a part of our team, fully functioning. And so what are some things that you've seen that churches hey, you need to do this, you need to think about this in order for that to go really well? Because that's the first impression too for the new staff member.
Totally. Churches are more prone to fumble this than they are the whole search process, right?
Like first 90 days, 120, is that kind of the sweet spot?
Yeah, because it's like we think we've got somebody hired and then it's like, we're done.
Yeah.
We're awesome.
Go be great.
Right? Yeah, do your thing,
do
right?
good things.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like the key word is intentionality, right? And to remember, your job isn't done. You are asking somebody to go through two of the most stressful experiences of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are asking them to uproot their life for the most part, move, and then start a new job.
Yeah.
Right? And I always talk about, the thing we forget is that when a pastor, as a ministry staffer is is taking a new job, they are leaving all of their community.
Yeah, that's right.
They're leaving their small group, they're leaving everything. And so for somebody to come into an office that's not cleaned out, and still have, the last guy's, books and all that kind of stuff. Not saying that that's from experience.
Especially the books that they didn't want.
Yeah, exactly.
The ones that were like, I got these free at a conference, I don't care.
Exactly. And it's like, that just says nobody was thinking of me. Yeah, exactly. So you want to, even through the moving process, check in. How are you doing? How's your wife? How's your husband? How's your kids? How's your families? I know this is stressful for them. So help them in that transition. Make sure that there's a way to find community. Don't go assigning accountability partners to people. That's just weird.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That might be another thing that happened in the past that I'm still processing and counseling. But
this will be your accountability.
Exactly. That's not awkward at all.
What was your name again?
Yeah.
Or for the first time?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's your deepest sin?
Deepest, darkest secret. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
So a lot of it, you got to do all the paperwork and all that garbage, but you need to make sure that you're not just assimilating people into your team, but you're assimilating a family into your congregation.
Yeah.
Care well for them.
That's good, man.
Yeah. And then do the check-ins. How are you doing? Hey, you found the bathroom. That's great. How's everything else going? Make sure they've got their technology set up. That's the easy stuff.
Yeah.
The hard stuff is, how's your family integrating into the life of the church?
Yeah.
Are you making friends? Do you have people that are being intentional about going out to them and taking them to coffee?
Yeah.
And having those conversations. You do that, you can botch everything else.
Yeah.
But you care for somebody's family in this transition, that's gold.
Yeah.
Wow.
We got these little baskets. The last place that I was serving in ministry, kind of one for each of us. So one for my kids, for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just with everything. A T-shirt from the local college, some gift cards, snacks. Like my kids got some toys and stuff. Just stuff like that. That did they have to do that? No. But it does. You're like, okay, this is different, and this feels like somebody thought about us and is caring for us.
We feel like somebody knows us.
Yeah.
We feel like, hey, they care about us now. Don't leave it at the basket.
Yeah.
Keep doing that stuff. But that kind of stuff it goes so long when, the day that you're crying.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm homesick. I've got all this garbage from packing boxes that I got to clean up and nobody else is here and ugh.
Yeah. I love that you started with that. You asked a question about onboarding and my mind went straight to business operations. Yeah. And you started way before that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm almost ooh, check my heart. I went straight to the work.
Yeah.
And you started with the person.
Yeah.
And the person's family.
Oh, yeah.
I want to believe them. It's well, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the no-brainer stuff, but man, that's really, really good and probably missed way more than we realized.
Totally. That first 90 days, you have the opportunity to really speak to the hearts of somebody that's coming in.
Yeah. And
let them really, really say, oh my.
Yeah.
I'm
a preacher's kid. We moved around a lot. And I don't remember, I was probably too young. Mm-hmm. If I asked my mother, when we moved, how welcomed did you feel? How connected did you feel? How did they make you feel connected?
That's it.
That's good.
She would probably have some very core memories of what went well and other times that probably didn't.
Yeah. Totally. And it's a discipline, right? Because we get caught up in our life. We've got our routine. We've got the same people we go eat at the diner with every Tuesday morning. Yeah. We don't think to invite somebody new into that. Yeah. But if we're able to, man, I tell you what, that speaks so much to the souls of people that are in that hectic transition season.
Big time, yeah. Well, one question that we ask everyone is always one essential component of a healthy church. We've asked you that already. You were the first one that we asked that to.
I wonder what I said.
Reminder. Yeah. First interview. But I'd love to actually hear this. What is one component of a healthy church staff, in your opinion?
Oh, wow. I am really been struck, and this actually goes just beyond this. I think humility. I think there is a need for humility within our church bodies and within our staff teams that we just I think that would go far in our current culture and some of the struggles that we're facing.
Yeah.
this whole idea of, this is what I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Speak into this.
Maybe I'm wrong is a powerful statement.
No kidding.
When you really feel it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
if you're honest, right?
Yeah.
If you're honestly doing that.
Yeah.
That's been one of those things. Somebody asked me a while ago in a job interview, what's the theological tenet that you think that we don't talk about enough? And it's like, I think the depravity of man, which pretty much guaranteed that I was not going to get that job. And
thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Yeah, that was great. But I think there's the way that we kind of embrace that. It's like, I am. Yeah, I don't have this all figured out. My God does.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm a little bit off in how I'm interpreting this, and I need people to speak into this, and I need to have the humility to say, I don't have it all figured out. If we have a staff culture that invites those types of conversations, how powerful is that?
Amazing.
Maybe I'm wrong. Whew.
Yeah.
Goodness.
It's good. That's good.
Wow.
I appreciate you sharing that. All right, let's jump into our final 5.
Oh boy.
These are going to come at you fast.
Oh boy.
We'll have to go back and reference. Not as fast as Nelly. We're going to go back and reference and see if they've changed since the first one. So, all right, one book you'd recommend to church leaders.
Okay. I'm going to answer this wrong. So
perfect.
I think we need to read more fiction.
I love it.
It's not wrong.
Genre.
Yeah.
I mean, if I need to pick a book, I can pick a book. But I think in general, I think fiction is something that we ignore pastorally.
Big time.
And I think just the way it kind of unlocks our brain to think in different patterns, I think is so valuable. Whether you're preaching or not, just having that creative, I'm not reading another leadership book.
Yeah.
Right?
That's really good. Yeah, I love that. And it also makes it easier to do the show notes because I don't have to find a link. I'll just say fiction.
I would like that to be the title of this episode.
For the book recommendations, I usually link them. Fiction.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
All.
Exactly.
That is really good. And I felt that myself too, where you're like, man, just another,
I am not reading another leadership book.
Yeah.
Matt Steen said.
Yeah. Well, when I've coached church planners, right? There's times when it's like they're in the early stage and just stop reading stuff.
Stop.
Yes.
You don't need to read another leadership book that's going to change how you do ministry.
Yeah.
You need to go and you need to do ministry for a while.
You get mentally bloated.
Yeah.
You know
totally.
what I mean?
Totally.
And it's like you got to go for a walk.
Totally.
Do something.
Totally.
To get some of that out.
Yeah.
So.
So just
that.
go read something creative and fun that just kind of stretches you to think in ways that you didn't before.
That's good.
Perfect. What is the last thing that you listened to?
That I listen to. I'm a podcast person.
Okay.
And I've been listening a lot to Advisory Opinions. Have you heard this?
No.
So it's David French, who that might get me canceled, saying
Again?
I love David French myself. So
okay.
Canceled with
you're
you.
Canceled too.
So it's him and I'm forgetting the host name. Anyhow, it's about the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And it's legal stuff. And it's really been fascinating.
So also fiction.
I'm not gonna say anything there.
Whoa.
But
Didn't take the bait.
Yeah, but it's kind of explaining. I'm seeing things in a new way about how our legal system works, and it's just fascinating.
That's cool. Love it.
Yeah,
it's fun.
All right, number 3, currently your favorite piece of technology or software that you're using.
I just got a pizza oven.
Oh yeah.
Good answer.
I love it.
I just got a pizza oven, and you know what? It may be Stone Age tech. It's fun.
No, that's awesome.
Yes.
When we asked that question, I mean, somebody could literally be, and maybe somebody did, I can't remember, somebody could say the wheel.
Yeah.
You know
right.
what I mean? I mean, I got a pretty broad spectrum for technology.
Yeah.
So
I'm a Luddite anyhow. It's like I got too much technology.
Yeah.
And this is just, it does one thing, it's fun.
Favorite answer
it's a creative,
in 1 minute.
It's a creative outlet.
I love that.
Pizza oven.
Is there a piece of wisdom, a quote, something that has stuck with you throughout the years?
Okay, I hope that this isn't what I said last time, but I've got a sign in my office. It says, "Preach the gospel, die, be forgotten."
Nice.
Love it.
And I think the dirtiest word in the pastoral vocabulary right now is legacy.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think there's something valuable of just kind of doing our thing, and then realizing that, you know what, maybe a generation from now, people won't remember who I am, but there'll be a legacy.
Yeah.
Somebody will have grown in their faith because of the work that I did, and I'm okay with them not knowing my name.
Yeah, I love it. You did say that because I remember it.
Oh,
dang
and
it.
it's no, it's a good thing to remind people. Yeah.
It goes back to that humility.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about me.
Yeah. So I just finished this is not a speed round. I just finished an interim kind of work at a church near us, and somebody was like, "We're going to remember you forever," and I said, I looked at him and I said, "I hope you don't." If you remember me 5 years from now, that means I either went to jail or this was the high watermark of the church.
Both of which are not great.
Both of which are bad. You need to not remember me. You need to be like excited about what God's doing in a fresh new way in your church.
Big time.
Anyhow, I can preach on that for hours.
So good.
All right, one thing you'd like to communicate to our audience, church leaders.
Oh, pastors, we love you guys.
Yeah.
You are doing hard work. I am grateful for your sacrifice. For the love, please, please, please take your Sabbath. Get rest.
Big time.
That's good.
That's good. No, that's really good. All right, let everyone know where they can find out more about Chemistry Staffing.
Chemistrystaffing.com is the easiest way. Go there. We've got some resources, and we've got all sorts of stories about what we do.
Love it. Matt, thanks for coming back on the podcast.
Yes.
Thanks for being the first and
the last as of today.
No. We have more episodes in our future, but so appreciate it and the wisdom that you shared. And we're so thankful for those of you listening, watching this. We hope it's been helpful. We would love for you to share it. It helps us get these conversations into more church leaders' ears, whether you send a link, leave a review, subscribe. All of that helps. So we would invite you to do that, and we are grateful to have these conversations and hope they empower healthy churches. That's our goal, and we are so thankful for you, and we'll see you next time.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple-to-use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.